Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Hope everyone's well, in the best of health, in the best of states as we continue on in this pursuit for meaning. Sorry about the delays of releasing this video. I was thinking about which video, what topic I should be doing, and I guess that's the reason of the delay, I guess. Apologies if you guys were waiting. Anyway, so to carry on our pursuit for meaning, I want to share with you guys this one book, one of the most instrumental books of my life. I read it a few years ago, and recently I read it again. And I just want to share with you a few paragraphs from the book. This book is by Imam Ghazali, radiallahu anhu. He's one of the polymath geniuses of Islam. The one, they call him Hujjah to Islam, the proof of Islam. And the reason why they call him the proof of Islam is because he did what some thought it was impossible. It was to like combine reason, combine spirituality together and into a system which everyone, whoever is in pursuit of this knowledge, can apply to their life. He is one of the most, I would say, prominent Muslim scholars ever in history. And we are blessed to be able to have lots of his books, a lot of his writings, and all of his books that I have read, which has given me a lot of food for thought. And I'm sure we give everyone a good food for thought. There's this book called The Alchemy of Happiness. It's very interesting, alchemy, because the alchemy is the art of changing rocks or normal metals into gold. I remember one of my sitting with one of my teachers before, we were discussing about alchemy, and he said alchemy is to change a fly into a bee, is to change something which is insignificant or bad, not bad in that sense, but I would say something, a person or a being which is attracted to dunk like a fly, and because of this alchemy you raise this fly to become a bee, which is now attracted to honey and things which is smells beautiful like flowers. And this is the art of in his book he calls it the Alchemy of Happiness. And there's many amazing things that he wrote in his book, The Alchemy of Happiness. But I want to share with you a few paragraphs which I think I am not fit to be able to expound it or to give so much or any depth to it than it already has. But hopefully, by reading it, we'll be able to understand it naturally. And if there's anything that I think would be of benefit, inshallah, we'll share it. So here's the paragraph that I want to share from the pursuit for, from the Alchemy of Happiness. Let's go. This journey of man. This is from page 24. If you guys have this PDF. One thing about it, this is not one of the best translations, but you kind of get the idea quite easily. So here he goes. This journey of man through the world may be divided into 4 stages: the sensuous, the experimental, the instinctive, and the rational. In the first, he is like a moth, which though it has sight, has no memory, and will singe itself again and again at the same candle. The sensuous being will go to the fire, like the moth, will just keep on going to the fire over and over again, as though he has no memory. In the second stage, he is like the dog, which, having once bitten, will run away at the sight of a stick. In the third, he is like a horse or a sheep, both of which instinctively fly at the sight of a lion or a wolf, their natural enemies, while they will not fly from a camel or a buffalo, though these last are much greater in size. In the fourth stage, man altogether transcends the limits of the animals and becomes capable, to some extent, of foreseeing and providing for the future. His movements, at first, may be compared to ordinary walking on land, then to traversing traversing the sea in a ship. Then, on the fourth plane, where he is conversant with realities, to walking on the sea. While beyond this plane, there is a fifth, known to the prophets and saints, whose progress may be compared to flying through the air. Thus, man is capable of existing on different planes, from animal to an angelic, and precisely in this lies his danger of falling to the very lowest. In the Quran, it is written, we propose the burden, responsibility of free will to the heavens and the earth and the mountains, and they refused to undertake it. But man took it upon himself. Verily, he is ignorant. Neither animals nor angels can change their appointed rank and place, but men may sink to the animal or soar to the angel. And this is the meaning of his undertaking that burden of which the Quran speaks. The majority of men will choose to remain in the two lower stages mentioned above, and the stations are always hostile to the traveler or pilgrims, who they far outnumber. Many of the former class, having no fixed convictions on the future about the future, when mastered by their sensual appetites, deny it altogether. They say that hell is merely an invention of theologians to frighten people. And we get that a lot today. And they regard theologians themselves with thinly veiled contempt. To argue with fools of this kind is of very little use. This much, however, will be said to such a man, with the possible result of making him pause and reflect. Do you really think the 124,000 prophets and saints who believed in the future life were all wrong, and you are right in denying it? If he replies, yes, I am sure as I am that of two are more than one, that there is no soul and no future life, of a joy and penalty, then the case of such a man is hopeless. All one can do is to leave him alone, remembering the words of the Quran, though thou call them to instruction, they will not be instructed. But should he say that a future life is possible, but that the doctrines is so involved in doubt and mystery that it is impossible to decide whether it be true or not, then one may say to him, then you had better give it a benefit of a doubt. Suppose you are about to eat some food, and someone tells you a serpent has spat venom on it. You would probably refrain and rather endure the pangs of hunger than eat it, though your informant may be in jest or lying. Or suppose you are ill, and a charm writer says, give me a rupee, and will write a charm which you can tie around your neck and which will cure you. You probably give the rupee on the chance of deriving benefit from the charm. Or if an astrologer says, when the moon has entered a certain constellation, drink such and such a medicine and you will recover. Though you may have very little faith in astrology, you very likely would try the experiment on the chance that he might be right. And do you not think that reliance is as well placed on the words of all the prophets, saints, and holy men, convinced as they were of a future life, as on the promise of a charm writer on an astrologer? People take perilous voyages in ships for the sake of merely probable profit, and you will not suffer little pain of abstinence now for the sake of eternal joy hereafter. I think this is an amazing statement by Imam Ghazali. Most people that we know, just when you have these discussions with, they will say things like, "You have no evidence," and then we ask them, "Are you really sure?" I say, "There's no way I can really be sure. There's always be some sort of a doubt." And I say, "Why?" Then we usually ask them, "Why aren't you sure?" Because they don't trust the sources. And they say, do you trust? Then why? What makes you have these ideas? And then we quote scientists and modern day studies and all that kind of stuff. And then we ask them, like, why do you trust these ideas? Why do you trust these people? It's because they have done the experiments. I say, have you seen those experiments? He says, no. But there are research papers about it. I say, have you looked at the research papers and question and do the experiment yourself? He says, no. So, because they are scientists, we trust them. So one of the key things today that people don't realize is that they trust the scientists. They are merely trusting the scientists. They don't really believe because they have this idea of Ainul Yakin. They are here, they are be believing in the words of the scientists. And what is the difference between believing in the words of a scientist than believing in the words of another person? Is it authority? And you say, yeah, scientists will know more. But when we look, as we have looked before, science is bound to change. Science in its very nature is bound to change. It will change its perspective over and over again. Whenever new discoveries are made, they change their perspective. Whenever new perspectives are, when it's like Newton and Einstein, they change their perspective. It changed the entire way scientists looked at science after that. And it's always changing. So why do we trust a methodology which is bound to change? And on the other side, we have people who, thousands and thousands of people, have said to be true, who said, yeah, they are saying the right thing, who thousands of people trust. When we look at historical and archaeological studies, humans throughout human history believe in God. I'm not describing what kind of God, but the idea of having a superpower, an idea of having an afterlife, an idea having of a supernatural being that created all of this. It's only in our time where this propagation of atheism and postmodernism is changing this whole landscape. Truth, and hence we ask them the question, like, why don't you believe? And Imam Ghazali says it beautifully. He says, like, you will trust if, for example, a person you are having you are suffering from cancer, example, and normally, you won't, whenever you have your headache, you won't go to a Eastern doctor and ask them for medicine. Rather, you just go to the pharmacy and just grab a Panadol. But then when the Western doctor says, no, your time's up, normally people put their trust in all these other alternatives. Like, why? Why do you put your hope in alternatives, even though you might not really believe in it? And why don't you? Because there is a chance, right? So why don't you give that a chance? If you are willing to give this thing which you don't normally give any preference for, or you don't give any authority for before, but now you do because you are facing a possibility of death. Why don't you do the same for the afterlife? Why don't you face and think about that? How can these millions and millions of people be wrong and I'm right? And I would say this is a very important thing for us to consider, because if we don't consider this properly, we will be in great loss. And I think the following passage will seal the deal with this. Hadrat Ali radiallahu anhu karamallahu wajhah once said, in arguing with an unbeliever, an atheist, said, if you are right in not if you are right that there is no afterlife, then neither of us will be in any the worse in the future. But if we are right, then we shall escape, and you will suffer. This he said not because he himself was in any doubt, but merely to make an impression on the unbeliever. From all that we have said, it follows that man's chief business in this world is to prepare for the next. Even if he is doubtful about the future existence, reason suggests that he should act as if there were one, considering the tremendous issues at stake. Peace be upon those who follow the instruction. That's all for today. Hope you guys enjoy that from Imam Ghazali, Alchemy of Happiness. You guys can Google it. This book online. Google, just Google it. Alchemy of Happiness. You can find a PDF on it. You can buy a book. It's a very, very amazing book. And hope you guys enjoy this episode. Till next one. Peace.